40 years of Dragonlance. That's awesome. All right, welcome to another Dragonlance Saga review episode. It is Misham Paleswelt the 29th. My name is Adam, and today I'm going to give you my review. This is a spoiler review, but it's a really old book, so who cares? of Hammer and Axe by Dan Parkinson. This is the second in the Dwarven Nations trilogy, and it's all right. I've got some things to say about it, but I do want to sort of preface everything by just saying I like the trilogy, but it has some flaws. So I'm going to dive deep into those flaws. So prepare yourselves emotionally. Get your support dog, get your whoopee. I got mine, and we'll get through this together. All right, I would like to take a moment and thank the DL Saga members and invite you to consider becoming a member by visiting the links in the description below. Membership means you get extra content that no one else gets, and if you're a Whitestone Council member, you actually get digital downloads that no one else gets. So, yeah, it's a thing. Join if you want. If not, that's okay too. You can always pick up Dragonlance gaming materials using the affiliate links in the description below this video. That's another way that you can help support the channel. And this is, again, the 40th anniversary. So I would like to invite you to help contribute and celebrate this anniversary together. So it's going to be kicking off November 1st. I'm putting all of the content live on my website, dlsaga.com, that has been submitted thus far. And there's been a lot of really great stuff, from art to written thoughts. I mean, some people are just sharing how they first got exposed to Dragonlance. Others are sharing what it means to them, or their own short stories and fan fictions, a bunch of artwork. And I mean, it's a lot of really good stuff, and I'm really happy with the collection that we've got going. But I would like you to contribute as well, so please consider doing so. You can always email anything that you have or any questions to info@dlsaga.com. And what else? Oh yeah, this is just my perspective. Here's something that I've never really understood about the internet. People get angry that other people don't see things the way they do. That's called life. That's totally normal. If you don't agree with anything that comes out of my mouth, that's fine. You don't have to. In the same way that everything that you say, I don't have to agree with. It's called being an adult. It's called living in a world where we're all individuals with our own interpretations of reality. I'm okay with that, and I hope you are too. And you're always welcome to share your thoughts here, whether they are favorable to my opinions or not. If you fervently disagree with my opinions, I'm okay with you sharing them in comments below or live in chat, however you want to do it. I mean, let's be respectful to each other, but that's what this is all about, sharing our perspectives on Dragonlance and life, I guess, as it extrapolates out from Dragonlance. So I welcome your thoughts. If you are joining live, thank you, one, and throw your comments up in the chat. I will call them out at the end of this. The way these work is that I'm going to give you my pre-written review, and at the end of that, I'll just sort of bounce off of any ideas that you guys have put up in the live chat. And if you're watching this afterward, go ahead and throw a comment in there, and I'll reply to you, and we'll have a little bit of a back and forth, and other fans will see that you love Dragonlance just as much as everyone else. All right, James, thanks for tuning in. Sit through us, always great to see you. Corey, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in. It's been out of print for a long time. Yeah, there's a bunch of old library copies that you can pick up for really, really cheap, like I've been doing. Started getting back into Dragonlance by discovering this channel. Well, good. Good. It's a great IP to get back into, I think. All right, let's do this. So, this novel starts out with a bang. First are three wizards looking for an area to build the Tower of High Sorcery: Megistal, Sigamon, and Tantus. One was replaced after having been killed in Zax-Saroth by an agent of the High Overlord of Zax-Saroth. Then you have the High Overlord of Zax-Saroth looking to claim the treasures of Thorbardin for themselves. For some insane reason, every human and dwarf in these novels think that the dwarves have a massive treasure under their mountain, with no evidence to the prospect other than their own innate greed. And finally, a beast named Rage has been recently awoken. How, we're not yet sure, and what it is unclear as yet as well. But it has all ravaged 3 towns, which drew out Daemon Omenborn and the roving guard of Thorbardin to investigate. Damon lost his wife and is still grieving, but one of the survivors of the more recently devastated town, Willow Summercloud, seems to be his next girl, if I'm reading the situation correctly. And I was. Damon splits the group. As he goes to investigate the beast's possible lair, Mace Hammerstand takes some of the roving guard back to report to the Council of Thanes and Thorbardin, and Kale Greeneye takes some of the guard to hunt the beast passing through their territory. It's a great setup, if pretty messy, but I am excited to see where it goes. And whoa, did it ever go! The wizards are revealed to have inadvertently loosed the wyvern called Rage, and as Damon finds the original cave of the beast, they're assaulted by the magic users who believed them to be dead. In truth, one of the dwarves did die, and Damon and the other went after them. They met the wizards as they were burying their magical stone to form the Tower of High Sorcery. Excuse me. As Damon killed one of them and resisted their magic, then tied the other two up. He was nearly thrown off a cliff, but a kender named Shilatek Medina Quickfoot, riding a raptor named Ka, picked up Willow and brought her to the wizards as the fight was ongoing, and they all saved Damon's life. They gave the wizards an ultimatum to leave and left them tied up. One of them returned to the conclave and called the orders together to relay what happened. The other wizard followed the dwarves, curious about their resistance to magic. It is important to note at this point that this is before all of the Towers of High Sorceries were actually formed. And this is when Calthax, which means Cold Forge in Dwarven, was one of many different Dwarven settlements, and this one particularly, Thorbardin, was not seen as a nation, it was seen as the fortress of this area's Calthax. So understanding that the entirety of Calthax, which goes all around the mountain, is considered their territory, and that's why they're being so aggressive with anyone that goes onto their territory. So the other wizard discovers Quist Redfeather traveling south on behalf of the High Overlord, and he steals his mount, and then he chases the dwarves. Quist eventually finds the dwarves and told them he was also hunting the wizard. Inside Thorbardin, the Thanes believe war was coming from the wizards, so they're rushing to finish South Gate and reinforce the original delving by the Daywar. They are assigned a regent rather than a king in case war did break out, and Willen Ironmaul, the Hylar Thane, was voted in. He went to work reinforcing and building the army. The wizards learned of the stolen stone and attack, sent the wizard back who was puking from the travel spell, which was hilarious, and were introduced to the infighting from the wizards, which was great. I love the fact that we're constantly seeing this ebb and flow, push and pull between the different wizards of the Orders of High Sorcery. They all celebrate magic. They're all there backing magic, and they will all defend each other from external forces no matter what, because they're ultimately defending the magic. But they don't like each other at all. I think maybe some of the nations of the world should take this cue as well. All right, so they discover the fortress of Thorbardin is massive and under the mountain and plan to take their stone back. The wyvern attacks another settlement, and two regents of dwarves go to attack it. The wyvern destroys the forces and hides in the old Daywar tunnel, replacing a gate after passing through it, so the dwarves don't know that he's there. This is when Damon learns of the defeat of the communications drum. It's turning into a really crazy situation. The wizards are going to hire mercenaries. Quist is going to try to get knowledge of Thorbardin, but will probably temporarily team up with Damon, and I think the wizard Megistel will be friendly to them, ultimately curious about their resistance. Megistel connected with Damon, Willow, and Quist, and as Quist wanted to kill him, Damon made a deal that they could study each other. The wizard tested the dwarves, and the dwarves the wizard. The testing was an odd experience, as the author straight up allowed a dwarf who hates magic and is resistant to it to successfully cast a polymorph spell on a wizard and turned him into a horse. This is the most absurd part of this entire novel. It says that magic is in the words, not the person, which invalidates everything wizards like Raistlin went through, and allows anyone who can say the magic words complete ability to cast any magic that they want. Completely ridiculous. Damon goes into Thorbardin and Willow follows him. She's clearly attracted to him and waiting for him to notice her. She's a very attractive dwarf, and when Tara, Damon's mother, sees her, she cleans her up and presents her to Damon again. This time, he notices. and so did everyone else. Willow is staying in Thorbardin, which is bringing in all the dwarves in anticipation of attack from the wizards and the mercenaries who have begun to gather. The kender, Shill, entered Thorbardin and found her way to Willow, and together they explored the underground kingdom. Willen came up with the idea from Quill to use some explosives liquid in order to seal off the old citadel and back entrance into Thorbardin, which Rage was hiding in, unbeknownst to everyone. They sealed off the mountain pass, but also nearly destroyed the surrounding area. But it was successful. However, it drove Rage the Wyvern further into the tunnel, into Thorbardin, pissed off and looking for revenge. Willow and Shill noticed Rage's mist through the gate inside the kingdom when war drums call everyone to battle. We didn't pick up with Willow until after the battle, but apparently she tried to tell everyone she could about the mist, and no one paid her any mind. She decided to take care of it herself. Which, let me just say, if you ever find yourself so fortunate to find another human being that, one, likes you and you feel a connection to, but also that doesn't mind facing down a wyvern by themselves, you put a ring on that finger and you don't let them go. I mean, hopefully, they're going to be agreeing with it too. But I'm just saying, like, snatch that person up because they're a badass and you want to be a part of that. The battle was primarily based in illusion, one of the massive force that was real. The other were duplicate from it. But the dwarves eventually figured it out and worked through it, taking out the wizards as best as they could, which made the humans easier to destroy. The dwarves eventually confronted the humans about their pay, revealing that they were paid in stones that had magic making them appear as currency, and this was the last proverbial stone, or coin as it were, and most of the humans ended up fleeing. My biggest complaint about this book is that it drops in the scions as a reference, but never tells you anything about them. You have to read the Dwarves of Krynn boxed set to know who and what they were. So when the wizards are referencing them, it makes zero sense. That alone isn't odd with so many of these novels just making things up. My biggest complaint is Damon's ability to use magic. How can you be a race which detests magic so much that you're actually magically resistant to it, and then simply cast spells with a single word, or completing others' spells with the finishing word? It makes zero sense. In any case, we see Damon facing off against the most powerful wizard, Kistelin, and almost dies. Megistel, the wizard who was turned into a horse by Damon and was gifted to Quist, were both imprisoned for some reason, and the horse suddenly sprouted wings. They say that the horse was able to cast a spell in order to manifest wings. But unless this horse is Mr. Ed, and even then I don't see it happening, I can't rationalize the nonsense. So the now Pegasus takes Quist flying to the battlefield, and as Damon is dying from elemental chaos magic, the horse speaks to him into his mind, telling him to reverse the spell and he will help him. So Damon reverses the spell, which frees Megistel, who battles Kistelin. Ultimately, Damon nearly strangles Kistelin to death, who fades into smoke and escapes? The war ends, but 7 mages teleported into Thorbardin, and 3 of them are immediately killed by its defenders. The dwarves flee the entry and seal it off as they use a newly developed weapon called... it's not called steam, it is steam, to kill the remaining human wizards. And I actually really liked the use of the magma tunnels and the effect, and I couldn't help but thinking of Austin Powers. Magma. Now with the war over, we pick up with Willow, who finds Rage, battles it solo, and buries her axe in its neck, then runs away screaming for everyone to flee as well. She travels through Thorbardin until she gets to a gate and ultimately traps the wyvern, traps its head in the gate. Then Damon arrives, showing his love for her and appreciation, and they just leave it in the gate? It's never spoken of again, so presumably it's a permanent fixture now of Thorbardin. There's just a wyvern that's trapped. Never killed, just hanging out. It just seems weird that they never finished that story beat. But that's not the only one. Oh no. Oh no. Then we cut back to Quist, who is a prisoner yet again, and lost all his gear to gambling with Daewar guards. Or I think it was Dare guards. Willin gives him a horse that Damon owed him and new dwarven forged gear, in addition to his old gear that was bought back. Then he's set free outside where the other humans are with his family. It turns out that the High Overlord of Zaxxaroth was overthrown off camera, and now the dwarves want to trade with the city. Talk about dropping a massive story beat at the beginning of the novel and actively forgetting about it until the very end. You could completely remove Quist and Zaxxaroth from this novel and lose nothing. From that point, you could remove the Stone of Threes and have the same non-effect. The wizards could just have a territorial justification for invading and wanting their treasures, or any other reason, because the gem is eaten by worms in the end. Total non-story MacGuffin. Ultimately, this is not as good of a novel as the first, and there are so many lore-breaking moments and story beats that I cannot, in good conscience, recommend it to anyone. If you love dwarves, all right, read it. But there's no real historical value to this tale, no real movement in the story from beginning to end, other than Damon getting married to Willow, which would then lead to a king in Thorbardin. And that was it. I started out with this novel so excited about the possibilities and loving the prospects, and it did nothing but fail every chapter after. I got more and more frustrated and upset when it's clear that this author knows nothing about dwarves, and it's ironic because he's writing about dwarves. It has no connection with AD&D, AD&D 2nd edition, 3rd edition wasn't out yet, and neither was Saga System. All you have to do is read the little paragraph about Dragonlance dwarves and you would know everything in order to write this. But he decided not to do that or to completely ignore all of it, which is aggravating to hell. I get it if you want to inject your own event or moment, but to fundamentally change not only magic, but dwarves in the process? Why? What's the upside to that? And the fact that this story literally went nowhere. It was amazing to me that you could fill 300 pages with nothing. Ugh, it so pisses me off. All right, so. Cithros just finished Dragons of Eternity. Oh, well, I'm glad you enjoyed it a little bit. Your friends were upset when Krynn lost its magic. Yeah, a lot of people were. Breve, thanks for tuning in live. How you doing? You love this trilogy even if it doesn't really fit in the setting? Yeah. 100%, and I'm glad you said that. Let's see. Trees, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in. Never read the trilogy. Not a fan of Dragonlance Dwarves, generally speaking. You do appreciate the reviews and summaries. Well, you probably enjoy this because it's definitely not Dragonlance Dwarves, at all. It's just sassy pants McDwarves. That's what it is. James, thanks for tuning in. All right, so you're a fan of dwarves, including the Dragonlance iteration of them, although they have their flaws for sure. You do have a lot of reading to do. You have read this trilogy. I read this trilogy way back when I was in late middle school, I think, or early. I don't know. What's after middle school? Is it high school? It's been so long. I don't know, 9th grade maybe I read it or something like that. Let's see. Love is love. That's right, Ziggy Zaggy. Thanks for tuning in. Injun Joe, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in, man. The novels have a notorious habit of not being consistent with AD&D rules. Yeah. And it's not even that. It's the basic premise of the race, which is so frustrating because the purpose of the book is about the race. Ugh. D&D lacks romance in the source adventure books. I mean, there's versions of romance, like getting pissed at your childhood loves and pining after abusive, non-healthy relationships and stuff like that. This novel is definitely off the wall. Same people who try to use dwarf being magic resistant as an excuse to don a cursed item and have it fail. You don't have a cursed item remains on the character until removed. Yeah. You think Warhammer dwarves are your favorite? You want to read it because... Well, definitely read it if you want to read it. I mean, why not? It's only 300 pages. You'll burn through it like I did. And that's kind of it. It's Friday for me, and this was a quick review. I was so upset. I can't even tell you how pissed I was. I had to edit my review because it got really out there and sort of rage-filled. And I'm trying my best to maintain joy when I talk about Dragonlance because that's what it brings me in general. But yeah, when books like this one go way off the rails, I can't help but just immediately react. Because if me, someone who just reads the books and plays the game, has no connection with the business side of things, has no connection with the creators or anything, knows more than the people writing the novels, then that's a real problem. Like, there's no universe where I should know more than the author of the book, of the setting that I'm actively reading. That's ridiculous. It's definitely not as good as King Priest Trilogy, Chris. Thanks for tuning in. Krynn has multiple ethnicities within its races. Let's see what else. Maybe he doesn't know what he was doing. I thought the quality of writing was okay. It's just the story itself was garbage. Just total garbage. And this is what frustrated me, is that this would have been the perfect place to inject like the building of Pax Tharkaz as the novel. Like have that be this novel. And then the next novel, which is ultimately the Sword Sheath Scroll, which is the building of Pax Tharkaz, could be the Dwarven War, like the post-Cataclysm Dwarven Nations War. And then you would have this really great trilogy of actual Dwarven events. Literally, the whole story of this was wizards wanted to build a tower in Calthax territory, and the dwarves didn't want them to. They ended up opening or unleashing a wyvern, which the dwarves end up killing or trapping, or they just forgot about. And then in Zaxxaroth, the High Overlord wanted to raid Thorbardin, but the author forgot about that story beat, and so at the end just said, well, he was overthrown, and here's all your family that they were using as leverage against you. How did the dwarves know about the leverage that were being used against them? How did they know where the family was? How did they know that the humans there would be the humans of his family? There's no connection with logic anywhere. It's just this tiny little thing of, oh, the dwarves have to stop these wizards, which has no impact on the wizards because they still make their towers of high sorcery, and they have to kill this wyvern, but they don't actually ever kill it. They just trap its neck in a gate, and that's the end of the story. Why did you write this book? What was the purpose of this book? It doesn't propel the history of the dwarves. It's like, hey, on Tuesday, this is what happened in Thorbardin. Awesome. So glad I wasted my life reading it. All right, so you think dwarves have potential to be as varied as personality and depending on the... Yeah, I mean, all of this is what we as the readers and writers or players inject into it. You know, I mean, we can't take a module or a player's handbook or something and then just immediately pull out a fully fleshed character. That's our job, to create the character. So yeah, for sure, any dwarf, any kender, any gnome, any race of any character can be as full of depth and excitement and interest as is willing to be injected into them. But most of the time in these novels that I've found, they just give them a name that sounds vaguely racial, and then that's the extent of the character building. That's it. So Quist Redfeather, oh, he's a barbarian because of his name. And Damon, oh, here's a good one. Megistel, well, it must be a magic user. Let's see. Quillen Runebrand, oh, he's the Keeper of Souls. Damon Omenborn, well, he's the dwarf that will ultimately, give birth to the kings, or not really give birth, but help in the process of giving birth to the kings. I mean, it's all so on the nose that why even, what are you doing? You might as well name them Shade. And it's as meaningful as a character development that they're giving in this book. And not just this book, but, just Dragonlance novels as a whole. There's really only like a handful of them that are worth the time reading. And that's coming from someone that's been reviewing them for years on this channel. Oh, man. Let's see. You like Kender? You were never invited to this party. You showed up. Yeah. That Kender in this book definitely was that. It would have been okay a book if you removed Dragonlance from it. Yeah, I think so too, Breve. I guess. It's so strange. If the story was about Daemon Omenborn finding his wife, well, okay, then let's restructure the story with that as the premise. If the story was, well, we've got to stop these wizards, well, then let's restructure the story so that it focuses on that. If the story is we have to defeat this wyvern that's killing all of our Nidar cousins, well, then okay, let's focus the story on that. If it's about Zaxaroth trying to overthrow the Dwarven kingdom, well, okay, let's focus on that. Instead, it throws in so much that it can't successfully tell any portion of any of those story beats, and ultimately doesn't. And so you're just left like wondering, how did this get through editing? How did this get written and approved? And ultimately, we just have to fall back on the reality that TSR was just putting out a whole bunch of novels all at once to do massive cash grabs because they were bankrupt. And it's the only way they could pay off their vendors in any successful interval. And that's what they did. And we're the suckers who keep reading them. I seriously have I must have a mental problem because I keep reading these novels and then regurgitating them all to you guys. Oh, there's something wrong with me. Let's see. Some rewriting and re-editing would make it better for sure. For sure. You want the Wizards of the Coast to write more D&D Dragonlance campaign books and update. Yeah, I don't see that coming, James. The best we're going to get is the classic Dragonlance trilogy that Mark Weiss and Tracy Hickman have announced that's starting next year, I think. But that's kind of it. That's it. The rest of us are just going to have to tell our own stories in the best ways that we can. And we are, with fan fictions, with playing the role-playing games, with sharing our thoughts, online like this, or in different social media networks. We're keeping Dragonlance healthy and alive and vibrant. And I'm stoked that you guys are joining me and all of the other fans, and I'm joining you by doing that, All right, but that is going to do it for this review of Hammer and Axe by Dan Parkinson. What did you think of Daemon using magic? What about the drop story beat of the High Overlord of Zaxaroth? And finally, whatever happened to Rage and Kistelin? Feel free to email me at info@dlsaga.com or leave a comment below. I would like to take a moment and remind you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, ring the bell to get notified about upcoming videos, and click the like button. This all goes to help other Dragonlance fans learn about this channel and its poor books. This channel, this IP's poor books. This channel is all about celebrating the world of the Dragonlance Saga, even in the less than stellar novels. So thanks for joining that celebration. So thank you for watching. This has been Adam with Dragonlance Saga. And until next time, Sláinte mhath.